You guys might remember in early 2024, I told you guys that I had found out from multiple sources that Kathleen Kennedy, the decision was made, she was going to be leaving and that she would be gone and step away by the end of 2025. Other outlets later came out and backed that up, and they had also heard the same thing. Well, guess what? The end of 2024, beginning of 2025 came and went, and she was still there. So much for that. And you guys might also remember just the other day in our predictions for 2026, I sat here and say, I predict, I was just guessing, but I said, I predict that we will go through all of 2026 and Kathleen Kennedy will still be there until at least Star Wars Starfighter comes out in 2027. Well, according to a new report, my predictions for 2026 are off to a rough start. Because according to a story, Star Wars leadership changes are taking shape as Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm replacements leak. Basically, this is coming from Puck's Matt Bellani, who, of course, you guys might remember Matt Bellani if you watched The Studio. Matt Bellani popped up in that a few times. But real-life Matt Bellani has reported that within the next 2 weeks, they're going to officially announce that Kathleen Kennedy is leaving. And not only that Kathleen Kennedy is leaving, but they have her new, not replacement, but replacements. The good folks over at Slash Film wrote the following. In a new Puck report, Matthew Bellani has revealed the two names that Lucasfilm is preparing to take over the big job. According to Bellani, Lucasfilm is set to officially confirm the passing of the torch in the next week or two. As for the pair of individuals at the top of the studio's wish list, that would be Dave Filoni, the current creative chief officer of Lucasfilm and the creative talent behind shows like The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Star Wars Rebels. However, Filoni will apparently be joined by Lynwen Brennan, a behind-the-scenes executive who's currently serving as the president and general manager of Lucasfilm Business. So the two of them would be co-presidents of Lucasfilm. Now fans are left to wonder, what will this decision likely mean for the future of Star Wars moving forward? All right. First off, let's acknowledge this is the third or fourth time we've heard that Kathleen Kennedy was leaving. But this isn't somewhere off in the nebulous future. Matt Bellani is saying this is happening in the next week or two. This is done. This is happening. Let me just give my quick thoughts on Kathleen Kennedy departing, and then let's talk about her replacements. Make no mistake, I am no Kathleen Kennedy hater. I have advocated and said for years, and I will continue banging on the drum, that she is purely resume alone. Like I'm just sorry, you're just a nitwit. You're just beyond stupid if you don't acknowledge her place in Hollywood history. She has one of the most impressive filmographies of any producer in the history of the business, to the point that arguably the greatest filmmaker of all time, Steven Spielberg, calls her the greatest producer Hollywood's ever had. She's great. But, as in everything else in life, just because you're good at one job doesn't necessarily mean you'll be great at another. Wayne Gretzky may have been the greatest professional athlete of all time. Doesn't mean he was a good hockey coach, though. He wasn't. He wasn't a very good coach. Just because you're a great movie producer does not mean you're a good studio head. And while I was all for George Lucas's pick of Kathleen Kennedy at first, it's been a disaster. There have been a few wins here and there. Obviously, Andor, greatest thing Star Wars ever done since the original. I like The Force Awakens. At least I like that. Rogue One was great. You know, the first couple seasons of Mandalorian, great.
Andor.
Yeah, that's the first thing I mentioned was Andor. But I mean, really, and I won't relitigate all the reasons about the major jobs of the head of the studio and how she's completely failed at all those. And it's time for her to move on. Actually, no, I take that back. 5 years ago was the time for her to move on. So finally that's happening. But again, just because I'm saying finally, thank God she needs to get out of there, don't misinterpret that as me being a hater of hers. I'm not. It's just that I'm not a fan of her being in this job. She's not done a good job. So it's good for her to move on. It's good for Lucasfilm for her to move on. Now let's go on to her apparent replacements. According to the report, Lynwen Brennan and Dave Filoni. I have very mixed feelings about Dave Filoni. On the one hand, I like him a lot. I've had a chance to meet and talk with Dave Filoni a number of times. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars Rebels. I love Rebels. And I really like his contributions to the first couple of seasons of Mandalorian, all that kind of stuff. I have historically been very resistant to the idea of Dave Filoni becoming the next head of Lucasfilm because he doesn't know the first jack squat drip of piss about running a major company. He just doesn't. This is completely outside of his wheelhouse. So I've been a little bit worried about that. But I challenged myself this morning. And I thought, when I first brought up those concerns, that was like 5 years ago. He's now had 5 years working at closer to the top of the food chain in the company, in the production company. He's now been a couple of years the chief creative officer of the company. He's had 5 more years of experience since I first had those reservations when people would suggest Dave Filoni. I'll give him that. I'm also going to cheer for him. If this report turns out to be legit, and I have no reason to believe that it's not, I'm going to cheer for Dave Filoni because he's now going to be one of the 2 people in charge of my most precious and beloved franchise in history. So that's going to be good. I am still a little hesitant, though, because to me, this feels like Lucasfilm is taking a step backwards. I feel like Lucasfilm needs new leadership, needs a fresh direction. And I'm sorry, but Ahsoka does nothing to make me feel more confident. That show was not good. I'm sorry, everybody. I mean, it wasn't the word. It wasn't The Acolyte. Okay, it was. I'm not trying to put it in the same category as The Acolyte. It wasn't. Way better than The Acolyte. But overall, Ahsoka was just not good. And I don't know, maybe Ahsoka season 2 will be great. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. But I kind of feel like Star Wars is at a place where they need fresh vision, new leadership, a new direction.
A new hope.
A new hope, if you will. Well done. Well done. But listen, there are very few people on this planet who understands and has a passion for Star Wars like Dave Filoni does. There's very few. And again, I like the guy. He's done some things that I really, really enjoy. I mean, just watching Star Wars Rebels always just filled my heart with joy watching it. It really did. But is that the direction Star Wars should be going? Because here's my fear, Rob. My fear is we're going to get the Ahsoka trilogy now hitting theaters because Dave Filoni just has this unhealthy obsession with that one character. And I just fear if Dave Filoni had been in charge, by the way, this might not be true. This is just what I'm worried about. Had Dave Filoni been in charge, we wouldn't have gotten Star Wars Starfighter greenlit. And I haven't been as excited for a Star Wars project in a long time as I am for that. So you know what? End of the day, he's far more experienced than he was, years more experienced than he was when I first was concerned about him. I think he's got a great attitude. I think he is a Star Wars is in his blood, and I'm going to cheer for him. I'm going to absolutely 100% cheer for him and hope for all the success in the world to come from this. But I still do have my reservations. Now, that being said, it's also really interesting that they looked to what Warner Brothers did with DC. They took a guy like James Gunn and they paired him with a more business guy in Peter Safran. And that's what they've done here. They're pairing up Dave Filoni as a co-president of Lucasfilm with Lynwen Brennan, who is much more experienced as an executive to actually run the company. So how that balance is going to work, it's clearly there's a great friendship and chemistry between James Gunn and Peter Safran. So that works great for them. Will this work well here? And another question I have is, how much leash are they going to give this new team? Are they going to give them 1 or 2? And by the way, remember, as in all regime change, we're not going to know if this is good or bad for a couple of years. Like Mandalorian and Grogu, if it sucks, yeah, you can put that on Dave Filoni because he's one of the writers of it. But I mean, Starfighter. If Starfighter is awesome, Dave Filoni gets no credit. If Starfighter sucks, Dave Filoni should get none of the blame. Remember, Starfighter coming out in 2027 is still purely the Kathleen Kennedy regime. It's not going to be until after Starfighter that we get an idea about how the Filoni. So we're just going to have to take a breath, Wait for a year and a half, 2 years to really see creatively. And then I'm going to be curious to see how much leash they give him. One flop and he's out. One flop, one hit, another hit, one more flop. Is that good enough? Is that not good enough? One hit, do they give him a 20-year lifetime contract? I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. So, Rob, I am less resistant to the idea of Filoni becoming a co-president for two reasons. One, they're making him co-president, not the actual solo head. And two, he has 5 years more experience now than when I first was concerned about it. And I'm going to choose to cheer for this. I'm going to choose to be optimistic. But that doesn't change the fact that I do have some reservations. I do think they should have brought in completely fresh blood, given a new direction to Star Wars. But this is where we are, and I'm just going to hope that they do a great job with it. We'll find out in late 2027, 2028. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, PrizePicks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the very first time, trying something new can be tough. But on PrizePicks, it just feels great when your sports takes are right. With big playoff matchups happening every weekend and elite hoops action almost every night, the action never really stops, and PrizePicks lets you take control. Ann and I both tried out PrizePicks a while ago, and we were honestly surprised by how simple it was to get started. I put my first lineup together in just minutes, and it genuinely made watching the games with my friends more fun because we were following our player projections all night, cheering for more or less. And there's a couple of features I really love. PrizePicks now has early payouts, so if your player gets off to a hot start, you can have the option to cash out before the game even finishes. And the new social feeds feature lets you share your prize picks with friends or even copy winning lineups with one click. Plus, if you like flexibility, you can choose Flex Play, or if you want the biggest potential prizes, go with Power Play. So download the PrizePicks app today and use the code Campea to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Campea to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Anyway, Rob, you hear about this. I guess the first question we should ask is, do we believe it this time that Kennedy is out? And then what do you think about the decision of leadership there to create co-presidencies, one for Dave Filoni and one for Brennan?
Well, first, I mean, Baloney is not Dave Filoni, but Baloney over at Puck is not somebody who...
Filoni.
Oh, did I say Baloney? Baloney. Baloney, I meant to say Baloney.
He's not some Gus's gas station movie reviews.
No,
he's serious.
And he's very serious in terms of covering the industry, and he definitely is in the know. So that leads me to believe that there's smoke there. Look, I think Dave Filoni, nice guy. I like what he did. Like you, I like Rebels. I like Clone Wars. He's an animation guy. You know, and what Star Wars needs is somebody who, and he's also he's a George Lucas acolyte himself. He's a Star Wars fanboy, which is great, but I don't necessarily think that's the best person to be running Lucasfilm. I think Lucasfilm needs somebody that can think beyond Star Wars. We need, and think of Star Wars in terms of being something other than it is.
Well, something new.
I'm not convinced that Starfighter or The Mandalorian and Grogu are going to do much to move the Star Wars needle. I'm just not. I think that it would be more interesting if someone came up to me and said, we have a comprehensive plan to do Knights of the Old Republic. And you had a lot of really interesting creators involved to do something grand. I'm like, okay, that's something to look into, sure. But I don't think that there's much excitement for Star Wars right now at all. And I don't think that Dave Filoni...
Andor helped.
Andor helped, but everyone knew Andor.
Everybody already knew it was going to be
that
great.
was the end. And that was a continuation of what went on with Rogue One. So I'm like, look, I always give new people a chance and give Dave Filoni a chance. Maybe he has a grand vision. And the person that will be co-president is kind of like very much a business person, business-oriented person that knows where the bodies are buried, knows how much money has been spent on Indiana Jones, and knows what went on. So that makes sense. But I don't see a bold new vision for Lucasfilm here. And I think that's unfortunate. But again, like you, I'm a fan of Filoni. Let's see where he takes it. But to me, I have a wait-and-see attitude when it comes to Star Wars in general. I mean, I think Star Wars is right now a moribund franchise. I think it's not going anywhere that's particularly interesting. Maybe Starfighter will be a good movie. I think Real Steel was a good movie, but it didn't make me want to delve into the Real Steel universe.
Why?
And I think Sean Levy is always he's always free guy. You know, everything he's done's been good. I like Sean Levy, but he hasn't broken any significant creative ground where like, oh my God, he does really great stuff. He's kind of like, he reminds me of Ron Howard. You know, I like all of Ron Howard's movies. I like movies like Cocoon, Beautiful Mind. He won an Academy Award. You know, Ron Howard's great. I still am waiting for the sequel to Night Shift back from 1982.
His first movie, right?
No, it was not his first movie, but early studio work.
Oh,
you know, did that because he'd made like what, Gone in 60 Seconds, or it was one of those things. Not the original, or the original, I mean.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm gonna wait and see. I mean, to me, Star Wars is a franchise that right now I'm more interested in George Lucas's museum than I am in the future of Star Wars.
I don't know. Like, I think Starfighter can be like Mandalorian and Grogu won't move the needle because it's just the next season of a TV show.
Yeah.
I think Starfighter does have the potential to move the needle.
I think so.
As something completely fresh and completely new, not with characters we visited 100 times. And you know what? Listen, while I am saying that I think we needed fresh outlook, fresh blood, not somebody who is just a George Lucas acolyte, not just somebody who kind of represents old Star Wars and not a very successful era of it. Nothing is precluding, let me challenge myself here. Nothing is precluding Dave Filoni from having a brand new, fresh vision.
No.
Like Dave Filoni very well could be, like, he could be the guy that comes out and says, hey, listen, it's going to be a new era for Star Wars. We're moving beyond the Republic. We're moving beyond Ahsoka. We're moving beyond all that stuff. It's time for a new, fresh George Lucas. I've said for years, the true genius of the universe that George Lucas created was that it's so vast. That's the true genius of George Lucas's creation. And it's time for somebody to actually step into that vastness and to go in a new direction. And maybe Dave Filoni will be that guy. My fear, and it's only fear, and we know where fear leads to. My fear is that it's just going to be, you know what? I had some really good success when I did Clone Wars. Well, let's go back and do 17 more stories that happened in between the prequel movies. That's my fear. Again, I have nothing that says that's what they're going to do. And hopefully Dave Filoni is the guy that's got the vision to go boldly forward where no Star Wars director has gone before. Maybe. Hopefully. Again, I'm going to choose to be optimistic. I'm going to choose to cheer for him. Would I have made this choice? No. Would I have gone out and gotten somebody else? Yes. But that doesn't mean this can't work. And it doesn't mean it can't be knocked out of the park. And it doesn't mean that Dave Filoni may not usher in a new golden age for Star Wars. Dave Filoni and Brennan, of course. And here's hoping it will. I have my reservations. I have my doubts. But I'm going to choose to be hopeful, Rob.
Me too.
Choose to be hopeful. Now let's just wait and see if it actually becomes official. But again, like you said, Matt Bellani, he was in the studio. He's not some guy just going out there spreading rumors around. And so
yeah, he's not full of Bellani's not full of baloney.
Yeah, he is not full of baloney. So
neither is Filoni full of baloney.
Anyway, guys, you know, it's funny. I still got some brain dead dick zits in the live chat. I was like, John, you're a hater. I literally just talked about all the ways this could be great for Dave Filoni, and I'm going to choose to be optimistic. I'm going to cheer for him. But if you say anything that's not positive, you're a hater. Oh, my God. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? It sounds like Kathleen Kennedy is finally going to be moving on from this. And it sounds like instead of just one person in, it sounds like they're going to go the James Gunn and Peter Safran route and have co-presidents for it. One to really more be the grown-up, I guess, and kind of run the business, and the other to kind of maybe hopefully look after the creative direction. But will it be a creative direction that goes backwards, or will it be a creative direction that's something fresh and new moving forward? You certainly can't doubt that you're putting a person in there who truly has in their DNA a love for Star Wars. So let's see where this goes. Anyway, guys, whatever you think about all this, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.